Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a huge pattern change that'll bring more severe weather to parts of the United States that have not seen any in quite a while. We'll also be discussing the massive heat wave that'll impact the country, bringing some feel-like temperatures up to 125 degrees. I'll give you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today. We'll first begin with the eastern half of the United States. That is where we actually still have a spinning low pressure system near the mid-Atlantic region. This is what brought a tornado outbreak in the Mississippi region only a couple days ago, brought a really strong tornado near Lewin, Mississippi. We covered that live, and unfortunately this is continuing to sit in the eastern half of the United States, bringing plenty of showers and storms, especially along the Gulf Coast. This has brought flooding concerns as well, not nearly as much of a severe weather concern at this point, but it is bringing a lot of rainfall, which is going to continue that risk for some flooding for those along the southeast and eastern parts of the United States. Now, for those in the Great Plains, Midwest, and parts of Canada, you might notice there's a huge sector of nearly no cloud cover today, and that is because we officially have another Omega block pattern, but this one has a twist. We're actually going to see the potential for significant severe weather in part of this region over the next few days. I will talk about where those areas are in just a moment. Now, back over in the western United States, we have another low pressure system sitting over there. That's actually going to bring a risk for severe weather across the Great Plains, but that's not necessarily the twist with this, because that's actually kind of a given at this point, because this Omega block pattern is not nearly as strong as the ones that we've seen recently. But before I show you that pattern change, these are the heat indices that we had yesterday in Texas. It was so hot. Areas were upwards of 125 degrees for heat indices. You'll notice near DFW, near Dallas and Fort Worth, areas were close to 120 for a feel-like temperature yesterday afternoon. It was scorching hot, and that's going to happen again today, so make sure you're staying safe. There are excessive heat warnings in effect for those areas as well to go along with that heat threat today. Now, for the pattern change, it's going to be a pretty big one. Let's just start with what's happening today. Again, we have that low pressure system back in the southeast United States. That's going to sit there for days on end. Unfortunately, this is going to be bringing tons of rainfall to those in the southeast United States and as well as the East Coast. Now, we have a high pressure system over in the Midwest. This is essentially our Omega block pattern, but this time, again, it's with a twist, and I'll show you that twist in a second. And then back in the Northwest United States, that's where our other low pressure system is, with a very strong jet stream, by the way. That's actually going to increase the risk for severe weather today and tomorrow for the northern and central plains. Now, as we go into Wednesday into Thursday, you'll notice that other low pressure system in the southeast starts to move a little bit backwards almost. And then we have our other low pressure system back over near California. This is the one that could bring some substantial severe weather to areas like the central plains and maybe the Midwest as we get closer to the weekend. And notice the high pressure system retreats back down to the south and southwest. This is not nearly as strong of an Omega block pattern as what we've seen recently. So overall, this Omega block again brings warmer and drier air, but it's going to be moving south, and it's not really going to be very strong. So this overall is going to make a very weak Omega block pattern that will bring more severe weather chances to parts of the United States by the weekend. You'll notice as we go into Friday into Saturday, we have a trough injection over in areas in the Northwest United States. This will move in basically the east-northeast direction. It'll bring a risk for severe weather in parts of the central plains and as well as parts of the Midwest. So not everybody will see severe weather, but some of those areas will. And then back down in Texas, they will be still pretty dry because of this overall pattern. And then once we go into Sunday into Monday, that low pressure system moves into the Midwest. So that means for those in the Midwest, you have some hope here for some showers and storms. Finally, it's been such a long time. We've been in a drought there for quite a while. And then once we go into next week, things become more uncertain, but we could see more trough ejections then as well. It could bring an increased risk of severe weather. Now, before I show you the severe weather potential, this is the temperatures over the next several days. It's unbelievable how hot it will be with this Omega block pattern. We're just going to have that massive wall of heat across areas from Texas back into Canada. And also there will be cooler weather. Actually, record-breaking lows are possible in the Northwest United States. With all this being said, it's unbelievable what we're seeing still with this sort of weather pattern. And you can really thank El Nino for what we're seeing. As we go into Wednesday, Thursday, into Friday, that heat will still continue. We still have that big wall of heat. And then once we go into the weekend and into early next week, we'll start to see a little bit of cooler weather in the Midwest from that back end of the low pressure system that could bring some severe weather. But overall, again, it's not going to be really much. It's still going to be feeling pretty warm there. And then going into next week, no really big changes there, but warmer weather will return to the Northwest United States. Now, for the shower and storm activity over the next several days, again, in the Southeast United States, you can basically expect showers and storms being possible almost any day of this upcoming weekend and as well as into the late week. And then once we go into Thursday into Friday, showers and storms possible in the Great Plains. This is where we could see some severe severe weather in certain areas. Again, I'll outline those areas in just a moment. And then once we go into the weekend and into early next week, showers and storms will start to dwindle in the southeast United States. So by Sunday into Monday, and then you'll notice that low pressure system in the Midwest, we have some shower and storm opportunities coming to the Midwest as we go into the late weekend and into early next week. So some great news there. Again, we do have a drought there, so some good news is coming for those areas. Now let's talk about the severe weather potential for the next several days. We'll begin with today. It's not a huge risk, but there are two slight risks of severe weather. One in the northern plains. We have very strong upper level winds, so that's going to increase the longevity of these supercells that develop later today. And in addition to that, we do have a fairly favorable environment for at least some large hail and damaging winds. Might be an isolated brief tornado as well to go with things. And then back in the southeast United States, we're going to continue to see that continuation of severe weather. There's a slight risk of severe weather for Louisiana, Mississippi, and a very small fraction of Alabama. This is mainly for the threat of damaging winds and hail. Couldn't rule out an isolated tornado though later today. And then going into tomorrow, things start to get more interesting. We do have a slight risk of severe weather extending from Texas back into Nebraska. This is mainly going to be for the threat of damaging winds and large hail. There will be an isolated tornado risk though back up near Nebraska, maybe Colorado, northwest Kansas, that area. Overall, I do think there will be some sort of increased risk of severe weather here as we go into the next 24 hours. Storm Prediction Center may make some changes to this forecast as we head into tomorrow. And then for tossing trampolines on trees Thursday, there is a very small area of severe weather. There will be a lull in severe weather on Thursday. Overall, just a marginal threat across areas in the central plains back through Colorado. But things get more interesting as we go into flying fences Friday and as well as scary storms Saturday. There is a slight risk of severe weather currently for the central plains. That is where we're going to start to see some concerning features with that trough ejection that will start to move into areas in the northern United States. This will end up starting to bring some severe weather to areas again in the central plains and eventually into the Midwest as we go into Saturday. You'll notice another slight risk of severe weather back in the western Midwest. This could end up starting to pose some threats of severe weather on Sunday to areas actually in the Midwest. But for right now, again, it's very far out, but things very well do look likely for at least some severe storms across areas in the Midwest. So make sure you're monitoring this pretty closely because it's been a couple months really since you've seen any storm activity. So things will definitely start to get interesting here fairly soon. To end off this forecast, we officially have our second named storm of the season. This is Tropical Storm Brett. It's out in the central Atlantic Ocean, and it's actually going to be heading towards land. And this is very rare. This is the furthest east that we've ever seen a tropical storm develop this early into a hurricane season. You'll notice right now, as of today, it is back over east of the Lesser Antilles, pretty far out, but it's going to become a stronger tropical storm as it heads towards the Lesser Antilles. I don't know if this will become a hurricane. It's going to be very close, but if it does, it's going to be on the lower scale of things. But this will really impact the Lesser Antilles. It'll start to weaken as it heads into the Caribbean Sea, and that is because of strong wind shear. So overall, right now, it doesn't make any impact to land. Most likely not any significant impacts at this current time. But again, things could change very far out. You'll notice this only goes until Saturday. So from here, it could very well go into further into the Caribbean, possibly into the Gulf of Mexico. It also could just turn out to sea. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. So no need to panic right now. Just keep a close eye on this. And again, this is what it looks like on the infrared imagery right now. So a pretty organized system so far for being a weak tropical storm. A lot of convection. Looks like a pretty typical tropical storm to me. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.